I'm Gina Igwe, and today we're going to be talking about delivering a personalized experience with a deep dive into the 4 steps you didn't know you needed to take. So let's get started. So a little bit about me. I'm Gina. I'm the Senior Director of CRM at DoorDash. Some helpful context and pieces of information for you to understand about me so that you can understand the context throughout this presentation. One is I sit across consumer, Dasher, the B2B side of our business, which is really restaurants, and caviar as well. I've been in orgs where I've been the one-woman show all the way through to 150-person CRM org where I was at Uber before this. I've also sat across B2C and B2C roles as well, which will help with some of the context, obviously, with some of you in the crowd who have both as well. I've also been in organizations where we have had a homegrown platform, we've had a third-party platform like Iterable, but also hybrid solutions where there's a combination of the two. So a lot of these points will be things I touch on throughout this presentation and hopefully will help you relate both to me and the presentation itself. All right, so to get started, these are the 4 things I'll be going into to help understand the different ways that we can personalize our communications. So at a very high level, the first thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to be setting the foundation, talking a little bit more about how you set the program up for success. The second thing I'm going to be doing is talking about how you gather the right input in order to do personalization well and at scale. And then the third thing is the actionable steps you can take to really personalize your marketing content. And then we'll round it out with the 4th thing being really closing the loop. How do you analyze, iterate, socialize the success of personalization throughout the organization? So step 1 is the foundation. We're going to cover 3 main things here: the team, the tools, and the goals. So let's talk about team. So at the core of personalizing everything is, of course, your CRM team. It's the core team that you have that's responsible for, your email communications, your SMS, your push, your in-app. Maybe there's other channels that your CRM program leverages as well. Direct mail is also a common one. From there, it starts there. At DoorDash, for example, there was a 4-person org when I started in the role. From there, 4 wasn't enough to work across a 3-sided marketplace. And so I did really everything that I could in order to get more resourcing to do the things we wanted to do at scale and not just be order takers for the rest of the business, which is kind of what it was when I first joined. I got contractor budgets and put contractors on the team. I started getting test results and started building out the function a little bit more so that we could actually do things that we really wanted to do that we thought were strategic moves for the business. After that, you really need to get buy-in from other parts of the business. I'm going to circle around to this topic quite a bit throughout this presentation, but here are some of the teams that I work most closely with that really enable a personalized experience. Business intelligence, so BI, analytics, literally integral to every single thing that we do, product, which sometimes can be hard to get buy-in from, machine learning team, partner really closely with them on recommendation engines, things like that, and then the creative team. So of course, the design, the copy, how we bring everything to life. Really critical in order to doing personalization at scale and really doing it one-to-one rather than just one-to-many. The second component of setting the right foundation is tools. So we're all here. Hopefully all of you are using Iterable. If you're not, you're prospects and you're considering it and thinking about it. So tools are really important. You could do a bunch of different things, right? You could build it yourself. You could have a third-party tool. Again, like I said at the beginning, you could have a hybrid. I've been in those organizations as well. But having an ESP is critical to every single thing that you'll do. Building on top of that third-party platform is also an option. That's something that I've been pushing my team to do now that we have product resourcing to build on top of that third-party platform and do really customized solutions for what your business needs. But at the end of the day, having the out-of-the-box ESP is a great start. The third thing, which is often I feel overlooked, is setting the proper goals and doing this the right way. There's 3 components that I tell my team when we're setting a goal. And I actually, when I'm interviewing people, when I ask this question, hey, what's your success metric? What's your goal? A lot of the times I'll get the first part of this answer and then I don't get the other parts. So it's really important that 1, you set the right metric. What does the business care about most? What I like to say is the common currency that others will relate to that you will move the needle on. What can the rest of the business get behind? So that's the metric. Identify the metric. An example of that metric at DoorDash is incremental orders. That's how I goal my team. The second component, which I think people oftentimes fail to identify or create right, is the measurable goal. So while my metric might be incremental orders, what's my objective? What am I trying to achieve? How many orders, for example? And so, you want to create an achievable yet a stretch goal for the program that you're building. And oftentimes I like to have a constraint on that goal. So while I want to drive incremental orders, I also want to make sure that my unsubscribes or the efficiency of the promotions I'm sending through these channels is a constraint to make sure that I'm coming up with creative solutions and keeping my audience at the center of everything that we're doing. The third component is, this balance of long and short-term wins. So at the end of the day, you want to create a sustainable program. That doesn't happen overnight, but you need these kind of short-term wins to advocate for the function throughout the business, to move the needle on things that you need. But you also want to create a program that's building a life cycle and a consistent way of talking to your customer over time. So those are the three components. We're going to go into number 2 now. Number 2 is getting the right inputs. I'm going to talk about 2 major things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is getting to know your customer, and the second component is the data you already have. So let's go into the first one. Getting to know your customer. This is huge. A lot of you are probably already doing this today. There's 2 ways to do this. You can either partner with an insights team, a research team, or heck, do it yourself. We do that a lot at DoorDash, where we get user lists, we'll do call downs, we'll send surveys. At the end of the day, we have all the channels to communicate with our customers. So doing it yourself is not necessarily a bad idea. So you got to get to know your customers. You got to understand what motivates them, what drives them, how are they feeling and thinking, both about your product, but also about your communication strategy. So an example of that, which I have on the right here, is our Open for Delivery campaign. So as you all know, when COVID hit, we're in the thick of it still, hopefully soon will be over. When COVID hit, everything got flipped on its head. All businesses, regardless of who you were and where you stood, things were flipped on their head. What we did as a business was we talked to customers. We talked to both consumers, we talked to dashers, we talked to merchants, and right when merchants and restaurants were shutting down, we heard from them and we heard pain points. We heard consumers saying, I don't know if it's safe to order food delivery. We heard dashers say, God, I just got laid off. I need more income. We heard merchants say, my doors are closed and I'm heavily, heavily reliant on companies like DoorDash to continue to make an income. And so what we did within literally a matter of 5 days was we heard that feedback, and working with the brand team and many other teams throughout the organization that spearheaded this campaign of Open for Delivery, we went out to our customer base with a campaign talking about the fact that restaurants were still open. They were still, your local favorites were still there. And we went out with a campaign that was talking to the end consumer about local heroes. This was a huge shift in how we showed up during a period of a very, very critical time in a way that was very personalized to the customer in aggregate. The second component of having the right inputs is making sense of the data you have. So you have a ton of data, right? Most of us do. Maybe it's decentralized, maybe it's not in the right exact format we need, and it needs a lot of massaging. That happens a lot, but we have data. And so, start small with some manual tests against that data to try and make sense of it, is what my team does a lot of. And once you see traction, of course, the end objective is to scale and automate and trigger as much as you can out of your ESP. But first, you got to start with some operational tests before you even know what to go back to the business and ask for from an automation standpoint. So an example of this that worked really well for us was churn mitigation. I'm going to talk about a crawl, walk, run approach that we had to churn mitigation. And to be honest, it's a never-ending project, so bear with me here. But the crawl stage was saying, hey, I think there's an opportunity to identify people who haven't ordered in a particular amount of time. Maybe we should target them with an offer. And then we had questions. Is that offer, is it efficient? Is it efficient to send an offer to these users? What time frame is too long? So we started with a blanket way of doing that. People who hadn't been active in X period of time. We started there. And we launched a campaign, and we actually saw some traction on it. We had no analytics support. We had no data support. We had a creative that we were using a template for. So we're really, really bare bones. After we saw some traction, we were able to pitch that to the analytics team. At that point, I had no dedicated analytics resources to say, hey, if we got a little more support and had a more sophisticated model for identifying who might be most likely to churn, we think that we could drive X more incremental orders, going back to our goal. So that's what we did. We worked with our analytics team and we built a model that was more behavior-based and more individual. It looked more at the consumer's individual behavior based off their last order date, as well as their previous patterns of ordering. And when someone was deviating off of that behavior, it sent up a flag. And that flag meant send a communication, target them. So that's exactly what we did. So that's the walk phase. Now run, and there's so much more we could be doing here, but a run example is using the model we have to talk about this like deviation off of normal behavior, and maybe layer on another model based off of incrementality. Only target those that wouldn't have done this action unless we intervened, for example, because some people will organically come back on their own. Helps drive efficiency, helps target the right users that need to hear from you, and that's definitely a more advanced phase. All right, let's go into number 3, actionable steps to personalize. So this is really the meat of the conversation. You have your team, you've identified the external partners you want to work with, then you've gathered the data and the inputs both from talking to the customer as well as just aggregating the data that you have today, and now you might be ready to actually use the data. How do you actually talk to the customer? How do you use the things that they told you to communicate with them in a really personalized way? So there's 2 things we're going to talk about in this section: segmentation, and the second component is the actual content itself. With segmentation, there's a million ways to do this, and I've been at organizations where you talk about segmentation and personas, and then you just never actually use it as a marketer. So I tried to talk to how we've used it at DoorDash in a really actionable way. So it's not just create a segmentation model and check the box. It's create a segmentation model, and then you actually are able to use it against your consumer base or your audience to actually drive marketing impact. I'm going to talk a little bit about an RFM model, recency, frequency, monetary model, which has worked well for us, at least at early initial stages. You probably will need to get more sophisticated over time and think about the inputs that go into this, but it's definitely a good start. So recency is all about when was the last time they used the product? Was it long ago or was it yesterday? Frequency is all about how often they're using it. In what cadence are they coming back? Is it every week? Is it every day? Is it monthly? And there's value in that time. The last one is monetary. How much value are they driving as a customer? Do they have high order sizes? Is it low? There's a whole bunch of components, and you bring these 3 components together and it creates a view of the customer. So I called out here the high value customers, which are at the intersection of all 3 of these components. Now, something you might want to look at is not just who's the highest value, but who's really low value, but high potential. Models like this really help you determine groups like that, which will help you identify your communication strategy against them. The second component is content that I'm going to talk about. Content is everything, right? And I was thinking about including stats in here, but everybody knows you need to personalize your content. We all know that. 90% of consumers want personalized communications. We could throw stats out like that all day, but you guys already know the facts. We need to get as personalized as we can. We need to talk about the consumer in a one-to-one way rather than a one-to-many way. So get to know who they are, get to know why they think the way that they do, and test into different strategies with, again, an eye toward automation and scale. On the right here is an example of one way to personalize content. I think it's one of the more common ways that you see, which is showing data. So on the right-hand side here is an example of communications that we send to our merchants on a weekly and a daily schedule to show them, hey, here's the impact of the business that you're driving today. Here are some opportunity areas, and it shows them their actual data. That's one of the ways, just inserting data to be more personalized. In addition, in the upcoming slides, I'm going to talk about a few more things you could try. I'm going to talk about promos versus value-based messaging. I'm going to talk a little bit more about promo offers and testing them against each other and trying to find efficient ways to talk to your base. I'm going to talk a little bit more about product recommendations and how you might use those and cross-selling your products as well. All of these are ways to personalize your communications, drive impact for the customer, and also for your business. Obviously, at DoorDash, we have products, but we also have merchants or restaurants that we're trying to showcase and we're trying to merchandise so that consumers can see them, access them, get to know their favorites. This is an example of one that we've launched more recently called what we call Trending Near You, which is talking about our pickup product. Our pickup product, but layering on like a recommendation engine. So, hey, have you tried pickup yet? One model is identifying who might be most likely to try pickup. After we do that, it's about what merchant, what restaurant would be most appealing to them to try based off of their past behavior, based off what they're searching, a whole bunch of different components. So we try and get as target as we can. This was heavy partnership with the machine learning team in order to build that recommendation engine. These are ones to help show variety, newness to your customer, and relevancy. As you may know or may not know, DoorDash acquired Caviar, a more premium delivery service, a little over a year ago now. And so a lot of what we've been doing and figuring out is how do you look at the customer holistically across both platforms? So we have two separate brands, and we want to make sure that we talk to consumers in a way that's relevant for that brand. But the ones that are on both, how do you cross-sell them? How do you talk to them as one holistic customer for the collective enterprise? One of the things I'm going to highlight is cross-sell opportunities. So we have this base of DoorDash customers, we have this base of Caviar customers, and we want to try and identify who might be best on the DoorDash platform to try Caviar, who might like the selection on Caviar or a more premium service. So that's an example of a question that we had. We also had a question of like, do we have to motivate them to do so? Is it just offering messaging to let them know? Is it awareness? Or is it actually motivation? Do we need to offer some sort of promo or an incentive to get the consumer to try? So what we did was we tried a few different things. We launched a channel test. So we were launching an email, we launched an SMS. We also launched in-app banners. So on the right here, far right of the screen, you can see the in-app banner where we're trying to cross-sell our existing DoorDash base to try Caviar. We partnered very closely with the machine learning team to identify likelihood to cross-sell based off of lookalikes. To round out the presentation, the last component that we'll need to do, and we'll bring it home during this, is analyze, iterate, socialize, all the things that we did based off of the tests we've run and the program that we've built. I'm going to talk high level about these three because there's so much more to go into, but I'll give you the baseline understanding of what I'm thinking. Analyze. The first component of analyze is, are your programs driving expected outcomes? So going back to the goal that we had talked about setting at the very beginning of the presentation, are you achieving those goals? Are you hitting them? Is your program doing what you thought it would do? And then the second component of that is, how are customers reacting, right? The numbers will say one thing. When you get in front of a customer, well, what do they think? Did they like it? Did they not? Your engagement metrics will show a component of that, but get on the phone, talk to them. Ask them if they liked it or if they didn't. Ask them how you might improve it. After you analyze, you got to iterate. It's a never-ending process. We all know this. What's the next step for a program? Sometimes the answer is tweak it. Sometimes the answer is blow it up and rethink it. Sometimes the answer is ditch it. So you got to really try and understand the difference when you should pull out those three. And it depends on the outcome. It depends on how hard you're pushing, a lot of different components. The last thing is socialize. So going back to both getting teams involved and incorporated into what you want, as well as setting a goal, regularly communicate with teams in the business your progress against your goals. So you already set clear goals. You might as well talk to the business and how you're doing against them. Hopefully you're doing well. If you're not doing well, maybe you should create a gap plan against that thing. You got to share big wins, right? You're going to have a ton of success if you're going from 0 to 1, especially when it comes to personalization. You're going to learn, if nothing else. Let's say it doesn't work. It's still a great learning that the business might not know itself. It might feed back into product and how they think about building the service. The third component of this is it gets people interested. It gets people interested in the work this function is doing. People galvanize around it. It makes them want to contribute. They get ideas off the things your team is doing. They get motivated and inspired to continue to talk to the customer in a really relevant way and in the way you care about as well. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you're interested, afterwards, I'll be in the speaker Q&A if you have any questions. But thank you for joining.